Welcome to another episode of Your Extraordinary Growth. This episode, I am going to be talking with Kristin Darga, CEO and founder of Black Label Coaching. She's coached and guided over 500 founders, CEOs, and their teams through some of the toughest times, and she's deciphered the cause of culture variations in the business and identified the root causes of suffering among business owners. Kristin is also an author and speaker. She is contagious, curious, creative, and visionary leader determined to activate people's capacity to make profound change. Welcome to the show, Kristin.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so wild to hear, that introduction, to think that's, there's times where like, is that actually me? Have I done that? Is that who I am? It's amazing. You never really give yourself credit, do you?
No, but that's why we have this show. Also to share the journeys of other entrepreneurs, along with celebrating the feats, really. I mean, it's weird, I think, and you can tell me if you share this experience. Because I'm a business owner, it seems that everybody is a business owner. But then when you go to visit family and old friends and stuff, and there's groups of non-business owners, you're the only business owner.
I think it's kind of funny because in our own little circles, we get to attract the people that we want to engage with or are into the same thing as we are. But when we leave our little circles, we realize not everyone is quite like that. Yeah.
It's
so
true.
I think I see that. I surround myself with a lot of business owners.
I do as well. There's it's amazing because I think that I can't remember who said it, but there's a saying that says you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around with most. So if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you probably want to be hanging out with other successful entrepreneurs. And if you're not, maybe we should start changing the scenery.
Oh yeah, I fully agree with that. The more I surround myself with people who have gone through something like what I've gone through, understand, sort of what I'm dealing with, it has so much value to my life. So I totally agree with that. And I think it's like you become like them, right? That's what that statement is that, you surround yourself with the people and you actually start to become like those people.
I agree totally. And so while we talk about how did you end up going into business for yourself? Because you've been in business for 11 years. And congratulations, many businesses do not last that long. So tell us a little bit about the origin story of Black Label.
I've been in business on and off since I was 26. So, I mean, each iteration of that is kind of like the origin story of where I'm at now, right? I can't necessarily say that this one started because of one epiphany. I've had businesses since, kind of the first time I realized that I could do something without having to have a boss or go to work. Like my brain always just worked differently. So around age 26 is when I first started my first business. And, I think with a lot of young entrepreneurs, the first iteration isn't really it, and it's not the best iteration, and it just keeps getting better over time. With Black Label Coaching, it came out of actually building what I would say is one of the more significant things that I've built. Black Label Coaching is the more recent, but Impact Founder was prior to that, and it still exists. It just exists in a different capacity than it used to. So I currently have Impact Founder and Black Label Coaching as my main 2 businesses.
And so talk about a little bit about Black Label Coaching first.
Yeah, so Black Label Coaching, it's kind of hard for me to talk about it first because it really is built off of so many different things. But I guess what I would say is I'm in my 40s. So I would say when I was approaching 40, I was sitting with a really good friend of mine who is an incredible businesswoman. And I had just recently watched, oh my gosh, what is that show on? It's not going to come to mind right now because I have to think about it. Okay, so we're going to move on from that. I just started watching this show, and in this show, there was this in-house coach, and she was working like, pretty hands-on with the team members at the higher level leadership, but then throughout the company. And I just thought, like, what an amazing concept that was to have this access to this person all the time. So I built Black Label Coaching completely off of the show Billions. I just remembered it. And at that point, I'd been a coach since, yeah, I mean, it's got its quirks, but it really showed me the integrated approach to having an on-site executive coach accessible to team members. And I started building my business around that. So I built, this business where your company had access in a different way to coaching, which we're used to having coaching for executives, and we're used to having coaching for a CEO and maybe some senior level executives, but or senior leaders or whatever you want to call them, or SVPs, or managers, senior managers. But we're not typically, that's not necessarily a given. It's like a special arrangement. And so I created Black Label Coaching, around the concept of billions. And as in true form, most of my big things that come to me happen after, like, for me, a lot of this happens in the summer, which is a weird thing to say, but in the summer when things are slow and things are quiet, and I can actually hear myself think. And in this case, I saw this really cool concept to integrate into companies on vacation, and then integrated it when I got back.
There we go. That's what I was looking for, was how the heck did you find quiet time in the summer? my summer this summer has been incredibly busy and in and out of town, and launches and all these other things going on at the same time. I just got back from Alaska for 10 days, where during the weekends I was out fishing. During the week, I'm sitting in an Airbnb taking care of business, because my business went completely virtual at the beginning of 2019.
Awesome.
And so I found myself on the road more because I stay longer, because I can work remotely. And, so in the middle of the week when not a lot of things are going on, I can get there. So, all right, so let's get a little bit of context with the impact. You say impact founder, is that what you call it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, impact founder. And you know what? I actually want to kind of piggyback on what you just said. The quiet time that I find, I actually do it on purpose now. I take a 2-week sabbatical, which is something that I fiercely believe in, a 2-week to 1 month sabbatical for business owners, because we just don't ever take that time to reassess where we are, where our business is, where we want it to be. We don't slow down. So that's something that I actually want to piggyback on what you just said. Remote work makes that possible to be places, but it doesn't actually make it easier to shut down. And a lot of that actually will tie back into Impact Founder. So when I started Impact Founder, the journey of building it, which we'll get into what it is in a second, actually taught me that if I don't slow down, that I will end up in the hospital. I'll end up with health issues. I will burn myself out, because it was such a beautiful business that attracted so many people, that it was a public facing business. I had, people had access to me. I wanted them to have access to me. I built this company to build a community, and that's what I did. But that also meant that people had access to me a lot, which meant that I burnt out. So in that process of building Impact Founder, I think I really realized that sabbatical, that slowdown, those 2 weeks where I could just hear my own thoughts, and no one else's, really, about my life, my business, the direction, was imperative for me as a person, but also a business owner.
I agree 100%. I do 2 types of breaks from my business. I'm about to do it here in the middle of September. I'm turning 50 this year, and so I'm treating myself to the Mediterranean. Yes, and so it's almost 4 weeks total, and my team knows in 6 weeks from now that we're not going to have access to the boss. And I get the original idea from Mike Michalowicz, and Clockwork is a book that I love. And it challenges you to say, it's like make a date. And the first time I did it, it was right when I reorganized my business from a brick and mortar 13,000 square foot facility with 22 employees, all that good stuff, to a 100% remote business. 18 months later, I did take 4 weeks to take my wife to Peru for her 40th birthday. So this was a few years ago. So with that, now every year, that's the goal. It's like take 3 to 4 weeks to just get off of the internet, because that's where my business it lives, right? We live in Google Chat and Gmail and Google Meet, and that's my office. And anywhere I have internet is an office for me. So yes, I totally agree with that. And then the second thing with what you said was taking that sabbatical, which I usually do in December. And it's usually the last week, used to be the last week, but now I'm married to a woman who loves to be with family during that week that I usually just unplug. Because when I lived in Alaska, it was really hard for me to be gone that long from the business. Now I can, but then now she wants to take that week. So now I'm trying to figure out where is that week to 10 days that I can just unplug from the business again, but work only on the business, but on top of it. So people say work in your business, on your business, and then outside of your business. That time right there is where I do my little mini retreat type of thing for myself, and just look at all the numbers, dive in, do all that good. So I totally second that.
Yeah, I don't even do that, but I love that. I love that people will do that. They'll give themselves a retreat in that way too. I just enjoy life for 2 weeks. Like I don't look at my numbers. In fact, a lot of times business things pop into my head, but that's not the purpose of going away. The purpose is to go away to live my life, to enjoy my family, to be in nature, to swim, to bike, to wake up and drink coffee for hours. I mean, it really is just to be in pure enjoyment and not be thinking, not be focused, not be tasking, not be, creating, building, trying, working, like going towards something. Because again, for me, and this isn't for everyone, like what you said is perfect for you. I think that, that design is wonderful. The design for me is really just be in my life and enjoy living and vacationing and having fun and not focus on anything. And the thing is almost every single time I come back from this, I have focus on my business. I have my next plan. I have written a book during that time. I've, I don't know. I just, it's like something is born and created out of just existing in this sabbatical. And it's not always business, right? Sometimes it's life. I bought a house. I did this. I did that. And it's like something happens. I listen to myself and I go do it. And it's really just beautiful. This is something that I'm focusing on more and more lately too.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about the journey over these last 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're where you thought you were going to be by 11 years in, or do you, or where are you? Give us a self-assessment, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, the journey over the past 10 years, no, I never knew the journey would look like it did. I never knew I'd be doing quite what I'm doing with Black Label Coaching, nor did I think that Impact Founder would look like it is now. So Impact Founder, just to touch on it, is this company that I built around bringing light to sort of the mental health of entrepreneurs. So it wasn't necessarily meant to be about mental health, but it was built on this this thing that happened in my life with someone close to me he almost took his life because his business was doing well and he could not scale to keep up with the growth. And in those moments, people see the success and do not think that you could be struggling. And it just hit me a year later. There were 3 deaths of founders under the age of 32, and it just hit me. I was like, this is the thing. People really don't realize that a lot of business owners are really struggling, and not struggling because of finances or their business isn't doing well. Maybe struggling because it is doing well. Maybe struggling because they were sued for billions of dollars. Maybe struggling because they lost their spouse. I mean, there's so many things that happen in the normal human experience as people in the world. And it's elevated as a business owner. The risk is really high. And a lot of times we don't take that downtime, and we do sacrifice things that are really important to us for the purpose of, the business. So I started this media company. It began as a photo exhibit. And that was, I'm looking at 10 years. It was about 10 years ago, right? And it became this community sort of community building organization that I didn't really expect to build. I built a photography exhibit because I saw the need to have the conversation. And it became a book. It became a podcast. It became, this founder group coaching sort of component to it. It integrated all these different skills that I've had through the years, from studying journalism to becoming a coach. So, and being a multiple business owner, right? So I've had multiple businesses. I have multiple right now. It's just not a thing that's going to go away for me as much as sometimes I wish it would. And I've tried.
An entrepreneur.
Yeah. I mean, I did go in-house for the last couple of years, and Impact Founder did go inside out along with Black Label Coaching in the pandemic. And so I am really in a massive rebuild stage. What does it look like now? And how does it work? And what am I creating with it? And I'm back there again. And so, I have this book with Impact Founder, and I do keynote on mental health and entrepreneurship. In building that, I thought, wow, with Impact Founder, I can really reach people and have them feel like they're not alone in this journey to be an entrepreneur. And having gone through the pandemic, I think sometimes I've mentioned this publicly, but I had my, I think, very first panic attack around my business because I lost everything within 4 days. Advertisers pulled, contracts pulled, renewals didn't happen. Went down to about $30,000 in contracts from well over that. So it was one of those moments that, I even talk about with people in these podcasts and in these interviews. And, it really is just a lived thing that entrepreneurs go through.
I know. I totally get it. It reminds me of my reorganization at the end of 2018. I was sitting in this facility that we had built over the prior 2 years, and it was literally drowning the company. The company had been in hypergrowth for about 7 years straight. And that growth was still there, but I had pulled the trigger on buying a building to put everybody in, and spent a lot of money to make it everything everybody wanted. And then it was nothing like everybody said it was going to be, as far as owning your own business, owning your own building. Because there's like 2 different things, right? Owning your own business is one thing. Owning your own building is completely another thing. And I think that's people who like that stuff, that's great. But for me, it was such a time and energy suck that, when I started having the panic attacks like you're talking about, and I never had one of those before that time.
Yeah.
And I've had near-death experiences in the Air Force and all these other things. And so I'm like, what is this? And my girlfriend, now wife, was like, you're having a panic attack. I was like, what is that? It's just like what you're doing right now. It's like, I can't breathe, can't sleep, can't do all those things. And so it's weird because you look back on that, because you do, as an entrepreneur, get through it like you're doing right now. You're going through that growth and you're rebuilding it, and that it's going to be okay now. But that first time you go through that, it is so scary. So I want to congratulate you for for sticking it out, because I know I've had thoughts of like, maybe I should just go get a job as a CMO in a medium-sized company and make $250,000 to $300,000 a year and work a 9 to 5 and be done with it, right? And so we actually spent time putting together my resume. I hadn't looked at my resume in almost 20 years. I was in the Air Force for 10 years and I've been in business for 13. So I was like, it's been almost 25 years. And so it was like, okay, so now we have this huge, CV and all that other stuff. And my wife looks at me and says, you're not gonna be able to work for anybody else. Like, you getting a job is actually ludicrous. And I'm like, why did you make me go through this whole time? Well, I wanted to see if you would come to that same conclusion. I says, okay, yeah, you're right. Now that you said it, yes, that's fine. so I congratulate you for sticking it through and getting yourself back on your feet, get on that horse, and not letting those tribulations get you down. And hopefully you're stronger for it now.
Yeah. Well, interesting enough, I did take a job, right? It was a client offered me a full-time position, and I'd been building for so long. And this goes back to that like sabbatical thought, or just I've been building for so long that during a pandemic, after building for 7 years straight, finally seeing like the fruits of my labor, I didn't have the energy to go back and rebuild again during a pandemic at that moment in time. And it was big, big change for me, right? Like talk about a death of your ego, right? I mean, it's like everything you'd been building toward just like gone in 4 days. And I didn't really want to take the job. But I wanted to grow. I didn't want to grow through drudging and like just slopping through mud. And that's kind of how it felt at that point. So I took the job and it was perfect. It was, it was 2 years, perfect, totally what I wanted and needed. And now I'm not there anywhere. Right now I'm rebuilding, and I'm, about, I don't know how many months. We'll
You
call
quit
it
the
8
job,
months.
it's great. And now you're back in. So was there an end of a contract, or did you come to revelation to come back to, or something? What pushed you back into this?
So it's sort of a crossroads, right? Where they are now a contract of mine, and it was time for both of us to actually create that next step. So it worked out really well. But there's actually, so that was perfect, right? So they're contracts now of mine. We still work together in a very different capacity. I have other clients now. I get to use my creativity in a different way. I get to build programs. I'm like really excited about, integrating some of this concept that I've worked toward over the years of this sabbatical, and like, what does that look like for people, and what would I build around that? But also remembering, what I've built before, and integrating Impact Founder, integrated my keynote speaking, integrating that relationship that I built with, like, over 500 founders, and now, senior leaders and executives. So it's been an interesting journey. So to think that it 10 years ago, I would think that it looked like this. No, I thought it looked like keynote speaking, more media, building Impact Founder. But at a certain point, I realized that my growth had gone beyond what I built. And actually the world had gone beyond what I built, meaning, they always say change with the world around you. But I think what happened was the pandemic brought mental health so upfront for everyone, that the conversations became more normal. And that was great. I think at that point, I didn't really want to be having that same conversation anymore. I wanted to be able to bring different thoughts to it. So I'd outgrown what I'd built too. And I'd started to do that a year before the pandemic hit. I had a team, developing Impact Founder, and I was mostly out of it just doing keynote speaking. So that journey is, I never thought seven or so years in, I'd be ready to kind of take myself out of it. But that's a really important part for a lot of entrepreneurs who are leading their company to realize that they may not be the right person to lead it anymore. Maybe they were the ones who had the idea.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. And working outside your business is a completely different journey as far as that goes. So one last question. If you could talk to your prior self 10 years ago, knowing what you know today, what would you tell that person?
Like, I should be prepared for this, right? It's interesting. I wouldn't do anything differently from the perspective of building what I built in the way I did. The advice that I would have, though, that I think would be valuable to me at that point would be to remember that not everybody I don't know how to say it. Hang on. To distinguish the difference between an opportunity and an idea. When you're in conversation with other people around what you're building. To distinguish the difference between or to really like respect myself enough or what I'm building enough to charge my value in it. I mean, it was such an interesting thing to build that I think I listened to other people's idea of the value more than what I knew it was worth. Does that make sense?
That's good stuff right there. Yes, it does. 100%. And I want to say thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable today. Thank you for all the insight you've given us today. And just people's stories. You would be surprised how much help taking the time to share your story helps other people through their journeys. And we all are going in our own way through the same journey. And it's never the same. That's definitely a thing that I've learned. I've founded now. I've co-founded a few and founded two of my own companies. And it's none of them are the same, and it never gets easier. So it's you just know what to expect. That's about all you can do.
Yeah, and there's actually and can I actually read you something from my book? Do I have a second to read it?
Sure.
Okay. And I think it's what you're saying. It's like the invitation. It's the preface. It says, I invite you to see yourself somewhere in this book and take solace in the fact that the people you're relating to survived to tell their stories. What this book accomplishes is a look at the range of issues from self-doubt to overwhelm to the internal battles of all kinds that entrepreneurs face. My ongoing research has also shown the challenges are representative of entrepreneurs everywhere. It goes on to say more, but what's most fascinating to me is at the time we interviewed the people in this book, it seemed from the outside that they were experiencing success, and yet there they were at that moment, still filled with self-doubt. I am reminded of the definition of courage that is often attributed to our military members. It is not that we are not scared, it's that we did it anyway. And with that, I invite you to come share your story.
Awesome. And where can people get your book?
On Amazon. It's Impact Founder, Inspirational Stories of Entrepreneurs Who Risk Everything for What They Believe in, the longest title ever.
Nice.
But I can share a link with you.
Awesome. Yes, let's do that. We'll have those in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Kristen. It's been a pleasure. And to all of our listeners, if you enjoyed the stories that were shared today, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and rate our show so we can keep in touch with you and you do not miss a single episode. And so until next time, stay extraordinary.